All right, y'all. It's your boy, Chris, on here on to Tina Cervasio. So we're about to get it going and talk to her. Yeah. So she's one of the top reporters in New York. So definitely going to uh, enjoy this interview without a question or a conversation. I always say interview, but it's a conversation that we're having. So looking forward to it. Wearing my A hat as I normally do. So yeah, sure everything's good. All right. Oh, she's here. Okay, so let me go ahead and get these questions. Uh, all right, here we go. Got her on. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing good, Tina. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for doing it. I do appreciate it. You look lovely as usual.
Thank you. I'm in my it's kind of a makeshift office. I'm at work. I'm at Channel 5.
Okay.
But it's
gotcha.
a little bit of a makeshift office as we try to socially distance, and we're under a little construction too.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Well, I want to once again say thank you for allocating your time to me. Um, I also want to ask you, how are you and your family doing during these pandemic times?
We're good. Thank goodness. My sister-in-law did get COVID. She's a nurse. She was sick for 3 weeks, but she beat it. And thank goodness she's doing great. And she's back being a nurse, helping people that are suffering. So we're
That's
lucky.
awesome. That's awesome. I also wanted to give you some background to why I reached out. So basically, I have seen you on my TV multiple times. And I've seen you do work with just where you're at on reporting Yankees, just different kind of teams as well, and just doing a great job. I've seen some of your reels went on YouTube, and I'm like, this is just so professional, so wonderful, just an excellent reporter. So
Thank
I
you.
definitely wanted to reach out to you immediately and talk to you because I know that you've been doing it for a while, and it's something that I can really hear your experience, your stories, and get great advice from you and build a connection with you because I think you're amazing in many different ways. So that's the real reason why I wanted to reach out to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. That's very nice of you. And I know you're making your way through, right? Did you do a football game this weekend?
My football game got pushed. I was supposed to do a turkey tail game, so it got pushed, but I did get a new football game, and it's definitely 100% this week. So after I get done talking to you, I'm actually going to reach out to the coaches, see if I can go to practice, watch their practices, get ready to do the game Friday night at 7:30. Yeah, it'll be my very first game covering as a writer.
Good for you. Good for you. That's great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, without any further ado, let me get started. Let me ask you, what made you or inspired you to want to become a reporter slash journalist?
Well, even when I was much younger, I always wanted to be some type of a journalist like that. So that was my strength. I wasn't very good at math or science, but I loved to write. And I didn't mind speaking in front of people. I liked public speaking. I thought it was a challenge. So I always wanted to go into journalism. And initially my inspiration was Barbara Walters because I used to love her interviews. They were both informative, but sort of emotional too. And she would show a different side of whether it was a celebrity or a politician, a different side than you knew, which I always thought was fascinating. So that's what fascinated me about sports, television journalism. And also Diane Sawyer was a favorite of mine. But I was always a sports fan. I mean, I tried playing all the sports as a kid, not so good if a ball was involved. My best sports were gymnastics and track and field. I
Okay.
also competed in cheerleading. I was also an avid dancer. I trained in dancing for 17 years. I would go after my track practices or cheerleading, whatever the case was. After I stopped doing gymnastics, I went into dance. So I was always about being athletic and active. And I mean,
Okay.
I just loved watching the NFL, college football, college basketball, and the NBA. Those were my first big favorites.
Okay.
I remember in sixth grade, and I just aged myself, but go ahead, do the math. In sixth grade, I started to fall in love with baseball because the Mets were in the World Series.
Okay.
And, I was a young girl, but, all the friends, all the boys in my class, everybody was watching the Mets against the Red Sox. So I really was like, I got to get, let me watch more baseball. Everybody was going to be a baseball player for Halloween. So I watched that entire World Series. I'll never forget it. Became a Mets fan at that time. Ron Darling was my first favorite baseball player, actually. And then Strawberry and Doc Gooden, I just, kept following their careers.
Absolutely.
So that was kind of like how it all sort of evolved. And college basketball, I became obsessed in junior high and high school.
Okay.
So I love sports. So I get to high school. Actually, during junior high, I'll go back. My dad took he was a big sports fan, and he played college football at Cornell.
Okay.
And we would always go to football games. And he took our whole family. We went on a vacation to California for the Rose Bowl.
Cool.
So we went to the Rose Bowl, and I just loved it and had so much fun. And my dad said to me, you really love sports. I know you love writing and you want to be a journalist, some type of a reporter, but you should really find something that you love to do and get somebody to pay you for it. So maybe you should look into sports journalism and all of that. So that's when I just started inquiring and researching and looking into that. And eventually worked my way to go to the University of Maryland. And I majored in broadcast journalism. And I made sure I took all my sports journalism classes and covered sports there.
That's really awesome. I like that. I like the fact that you liked all the sports like that, but you knew that, maybe ball wasn't something you wanted to play. But gymnastics is tough. Dance is really good, and it's really active, like you said. I am very good at math. And I will say you don't look nowhere near that. The oldest I would have said was 36.
Okay.
36.
I was 1 when I watched the World Series. That's good. In 86. That's good.
That's what I would have said. I would have said that. I would have said mature, but not that. But yes, when you said the Doc Gooden in the 86 World Series, the only thing that comes to my mind is the ball going through the legs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, of course.
Right?
Iconic. Yeah.
Right.
History. And then the irony is I ended up working at the Red Sox. The irony is in 2006, I got a job at NESN, New England Sports Network, and I was the Red Sox reporter for 2 seasons. And they went on to win the World Series in 2007. So
yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Yeah. So it's kind of ironic, really neat how everything sort of came full circle with that.
Absolutely. I didn't always want to pursue sports. I actually wanted to be a math teacher at first. I always loved sports, but I love making an impact in children's lives as well. So I wanted to do that as well. But when they told me I would have to take like calculus and trigonometry and Calc 2, I said, the hell with that. We're going to have to go in a different direction. So that's what led me to journalism, because I fell in love with writing. So that's why I'm on a staff. I'm a staff writer at a magazine, or I should say I'm a staff writer for a magazine, and at my school, and I'm also on the sports radio team as well. So yeah, so definitely.
Math comes in handy now though. Even beyond stats, all the analytics and all the fantasy. Fantasy leagues. That's where I have my, I get the phone out and I'm doing all my.
Yeah, me too. I got a fantasy draft coming up tomorrow, so yeah, I totally understand. What type of things did you do at Maryland, and how has those experiences helped you in your role now?
Oh, I got so much experience at Maryland. So not only did I take the classes, but I did a lot of independent study. I did this one class, it was just independent, journalism 400. And what I did was I created my own sports show. So I basically created exactly what I'm doing now. I have Sports Extra on Sunday nights. It was a half-hour weekly sports show. It was pretty funny because, it's small potatoes. So I was the producer, director, writer, and anchor most of the time. And I would go out and report, but I would
Okay.
also get my other friends that that were in journalism, that wanted to be sportscasters as well. So
Mhm.
we would all like put together packages. We would go out and report during the week. Sometimes we would co-anchor together. Sometimes I wouldn't anchor at all. Like somebody else would anchor. I would stay in the control room. It was called Terrapin Timeout. So I did that my senior year.
Cool.
I also worked at the campus radio station. And
Okay.
I do regret though, I should have tried play by play, but at that time, there were no women doing play by play. So
Yeah.
what I did is I hosted pregame, halftime shows, or did updates on the radio. But I was involved in the sports department. So I would do updates, whatever the case was, loved doing the halftime updates.
Right.
So I was doing all that stuff. So I had a lot of great experience both doing, oops, did I lose you for a second? I
No,
thought I did.
I'm here. I'm right here with you.
I did all of that, and I also was a DJ. So so I had a show where I would play music on our radio station, but that helped me a lot with like ad-libbing, back timing, a lot of the technical stuff that you eventually learn and have to do in radio as well.
Right.
So did a ton of that. That's what I did in college, and I thought I got a lot of great experience. And then I did a couple of internships. I did one internship at ABC News,
Okay.
and I went the news route because I thought it was so interesting because it was with, now the show doesn't exist anymore. It was called Primetime Live, and it was with Sam Donaldson and Cokie Roberts at the time,
Okay.
and gosh, I'm aging myself again. But I love the magazine style of the show, the long format packages and how they would go in depth. So it's like, like Dateline, anything that there is today.
Right.
And I'll never forget, it was during Cal Ripken's streak as well as the baseball lockout. And there was that whole debate if the streak was going to continue, etc. So that was kind of fun working on that story. I would go back and log all old Orioles games leading, throughout his streak.
Right.
And I didn't go on the shoot, but when I think Chris Wallace actually did the story. And when he came back, I got to log his video and really watch how he asked questions, how he formulated questions. I'll never forget that whole feature. It was like an 8-minute, 10-minute piece. Might have even been 2 parts, but it was really neat to watch it go from, watch him build that from scratch. So that was a whole education. And then my senior year, I did an internship at the local CBS station in Baltimore with the sports department. So then I would go around, hold my microphone at Orioles games, Capitals games. It was when the Ravens first came to Baltimore, so that was super cool. When they named the team, and they came back from Cleveland, or they didn't come back from Cleveland, they came from Cleveland at the time.
Right.
And what else did I do that was really neat? Pimlico, it was the Preakness States I got to go to as a, not as a reporter, but as, a tag-along intern.
Yeah.
What else was cool? Of course, we had Maryland football. So stuff like that. So it was good hands-on experience that I got at college.
That's really cool. Especially that covering that Baltimore team from, them coming from what was it, Cleveland? Cleveland transition to Baltimore, right? So yeah, that was pretty cool to be doing that. But just look at you now. I mean, you're terrific at what you do, and that kind of prepped you for the many years that you have been doing it. So it's pretty cool. I like that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what was your so you talked about your first intern job. What was the pros and cons about it?
About the internship? Mm-hmm. So which one, the news one or the sports one?
Both.
I mean, the pros were you got to watch the highest in their profession work. I mean, I got to watch how they prepared, how they worked behind the scenes, how they wrote things, how they fixed things, just the way that they built their stories, reported on them. Learned a lot of technical stuff that I wasn't able to learn at Maryland because we were just so small scale, and we were putting stuff on the old VHS tapes. So I got to watch the technical side of things, how producers worked, and also how the highest level of like camera people and editors got to see all that happen right before my eyes. I guess the cons were the fact that I couldn't actually report. I couldn't actually learn how to do questioning and respond to answers and how to follow up. I mean, I didn't have, you just couldn't do that. I couldn't actually edit myself, but I was always there with it. So it wasn't fully hands-on, but it was, I mean, I didn't miss a beat. There wasn't anything I couldn't be near. I just couldn't physically do it myself. So that's pretty much it. And then I'm glad I did the news internship as well, just because it was at a network and it was just so high scale. So it really got to see the best of the best work at that level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. And then it's just, it was only like 2 days a week. I think actually Primetime Live is only 1 day a week. And I think I used to go to the CBS affiliate like 3 days a week at most. Sometimes I would go in extra to help them log a game, or if there was like a double header or there's a bunch of stuff going on at once, like football and baseball and preseason basketball or whatever. They were the Washington Bullets at the time. And then I could
Right.
always say they were the Washington Redskins at the time. So they changed both their team names since I was in college,
Right.
especially now. So that's, so that was, yeah, so it just wasn't every day, but no, I still learned a lot. It was, really priceless.
Yeah, that's my ultimate goal, to be like, to cover, per se, I'll just use Atlanta as where I'm based at now as an example, cover a Falcons game at 1 o'clock and then cover a Hawks game at 7:30. To me, you can never get enough of sports because I love it too much. That's the ultimate goal. I love to be a writer, reporter, and broadcaster, so a triple threat.
And that's what you have to do these days. You have to know how to do it all. I mean, I
Right?
do radio as well. I mean, I report here at Channel 5. I anchor here. I write all my stuff, produce different things. You do, and that's the best way that then they'll hire you when you could do multiple things.
Absolutely.
When you can anchor and report and write a blog and write a story. That's what they want to see you do.
Yeah, I like that. Have there ever been a time in your life where you no longer wanted to do reporting? And if so, how did you exhibit the resiliency to not quit?
That's a good question. And yes, there was a time. So let's see, I'm trying to think what I was doing beforehand. I think I was just working at a small cable station in Staten Island and just wasn't making a lot of money. And I was struggling. I was in my mid-20s, still living with my parents. A lot of my friends had apartments in New York City or wherever they were working. And, it was a little frustrating, and I wasn't on air a ton, and just like once in a while. And I kind of just was looking into other jobs to make money. And I got a job in sales for Hilton because my dad was in the resort business. So we knew somebody who got the interview, and I was, used to being on air. I was practicing and being on air. So I had a good way of presentation. All that stuff was easy to me. So I got a sales. It was selling timeshare ownership or something. And it was cool. I got dressed up, got to go to New York City every day because I live in New Jersey. And it was neat. It was Midtown Manhattan on 53rd and 7th. And it was this glamorous hotel. And I was there every day. And I was making good money. So now I'm making money and I'd buy nicer clothes.
Absolutely.
So one day, and I was only there about, maybe this is month 3. So sure enough, that day we're in the lobby, which is where our little nook was, where we brought people in. And who starts walking by in the hallway but the New York Mets? And it was their welcome home, like opening of the season. It was in early April, obviously, when they have all the fans and the ticket holders, the season ticket holders. Everybody comes for this big gala, and they welcome the team back from spring training, and they start the season. So it was like welcome home or whatever they call it. And I see Mike Piazza go by, and then I see all of the reporters and their camera people. The camera people are running with their cameras. The reporters, who were all stars to me, they go running after Piazza with their microphones, and I'm watching them, and then I'm watching other players go by, and I'm like, I got to get back to doing that. I got to get back to doing it. I had to figure something out. So the next month or so, I made some contacts and calls, used some people that I knew through internships and through like little jobs. I was a runner a lot for Fox Sports. I would just, for $50 a day, I would get coffee for Joe Buck or whoever was, Pat Summerall at the time for a couple of football games. And or make photocopies for the announcers or the producers working the truck for $50 a day. That was also a good experience. So I started making some contacts with people there that lived in New York, did broadcasting, and I was able to audition and get a job doing on-air radio traffic reporting. See, still not a sports broadcaster, but that scene, while I was doing sales and making decent money for my mid-20s, but that scene, watching the Mets and all of the New York reporters and television people go flying by me, that scene inspired me again, and I got on air, and I was able to do traffic reporting and just I was on air every day, and it taught me how to think on the fly, how to ad lib, how to process information. Say it would be like the traffic list, but now I say like a box score, and turn it into a story.
Okay.
And also learn how to, like, you know, say, okay, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you have to kind of get that report story out in a minute, 30 seconds. And sometimes I would write it out. I learned how to ad lib. So it was a really good training ground. And that was, so that was the time when I was like, I'm out of here. But it didn't take long, Chris. It took 3 months, and I got right back in. But it wasn't right back into sports, obviously, but at least it was broadcasting. And then from there, I started doing sports updates. I started at Bloomberg Radio doing updates.
Okay.
And then from there, I did, I would fill in once in a while at 1010 Wins in New York City. And then from there, I took that demo and I auditioned for WFAN, and then started doing 2020 sports updates there. So it was just I had a very slow ladder to climb. It was very slow.
Yeah.
But I kept going. Yeah, I did whatever I could to get to each rung.
I like that. I mean, you grinded, but it also shows your dedication to what you wanted to do, and that's one of the reasons why I definitely want to reach out to you, because I think that a lot of people see you on TV and they think that it's glamorous, and they think, well, she got it made, but they really don't know the hard work that you really have to put in behind the scenes. And I do. I respect it a lot, because even in college, trying to come up with stories and write stuff is difficult. It's really difficult.
Still is, yeah. Yep.
So you got to go through hoops sometimes to talk to folks and stuff like that. So I really respect it. I really do. And I admire that about you so much. I wanted to ask you, before I got into the next question, how long did it take you graduating from Maryland to find work?
So, I mean, I was always working. I always had some kind of a job. So my very, very, very first job actually was writing for a local weekly sports news, local weekly paper. And then I did sports. So it was my hometown newspaper, published every Thursday, the Nutley Sun. And right out of college, they brought me in to write articles, and that I had to be really creative. So not because it was the summertime, so it was my first gig. So it was more like Little League and, it was, I'm trying to think what else, but it was like all off-season stories, because it really wasn't, the sports was really in season, high school sports-wise. So I would just follow up on college athletes that went to Nutley High School, little things like that. I'll never forget, I did a feature on Tom Cruise's wrestling coach, because Tom Cruise grew up in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, and he wrestled. And he went by Tom Mapother then. That was his real last name. Wow. And he's actually a really good wrestler. His legendary coach was retired. So I did a story on his retirement, and then I had the whole little thing about Tom Cruise. And at the time, they still kept in touch. So it's
That's pretty dope. Oh, wow. I never knew he wrestled like that. I knew he was from Jersey. And I was going to ask you, because you definitely sound like you're from up top, but I didn't know whether it was from New York or Jersey. I didn't know which one, but I could see the Jersey right there. So I like that. I've been to Jersey once. That was Secaucus, and that's actually it was by accident. By accident how I got there, because I got lost. So there you have it. But I wanted to tell you a story before I got to the next question, because we talked about how you showed the resiliency to not quit, even though you were doing sales. You went back to your passion. You know what I mean? So I actually had a moment myself where I no longer I didn't know if I wanted to continue sports. It was during my first internship. So my first internship, which was a few years ago, I got an internship with the Knoxville Ice Bears, minor league hockey team. It was the operations game day internship. I got it from going to Breaking Into Sports Nashville Predators Workshop the previous month, which was in that November. And they called me and they said, "Hey, Chris, we would love for you to come down and do some games." And I said, "Oh, okay, sure." Now, I said sure really fast because I was excited that somebody called me, because I was like, I've never did a sports internship before. So at the time, I didn't have a car. I was living at home. and I had to figure out one how to get there, and then do that first. So this is what I would do, Ken. What I would do is I would go to I would get up at 4:30 in the morning. I would either catch an Uber or have my uncle drop me off to a MARTA station.
Mm.
I would take the mega bus. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Okay, so I took the
Mm-hmm.
mega bus from Atlanta to Knoxville, paid my mega bus ticket, which was
How many
4 hours.
hours?
That's
4 hours.
4 hours.
Because there's a
Yeah,
mega bus that goes from DC to New York.
yeah.
That's how I know the mega bus.
I've taken that too, but that's a different story for a different day. So I get to Knoxville. I have to catch the Knoxville transit to my hotel, which I paid for. I've never been to Knoxville in my life.
Mm.
So it's a new city, never been to Tennessee, period. New state. Get there, I would work the games. While I was doing online classes in school, while I was having
Oh,
a full-time job as well. I had a full-time job with the lottery, which I work with right now. But at that
sure.
time, I had a different position. I was working Sunday through Thursday, 8 to 5. Then my Friday and Saturdays would be in Knoxville, where I was working the game day internship. I did that for 3.5 months. Now, there'd be some weekends where they wouldn't have two games. They only would have one. So I
Mm.
would go there, take the mega bus, and do a quick turnaround and have to
Wow.
Uber back home as well.
Yeah.
So basically, one night I was sitting in my hotel room and I said to myself, what the hell am I doing this for? Because I'm
Yeah.
not getting paid.
And how old were
And
you?
you said what?
How old were you?
Oh, at that time I was 25. Now I'm 28.
Yeah.
So I was 25 at that time as a man and just trying to figure some things out. But I actually started college late. I started at 23.
Doesn't
So, right?
matter.
So at that point, I was like still living at home, still doing this. But I said, if I'm going to commit myself, I'm going to have to dive in and I
Mm.
can't half-ass this at all. I really need to, if I started this, I got to finish it. So I finished it for the 3.5 months. But it also made me realize that I didn't want to do operations. No
Yeah.
operations, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I love kids. I love interacting with them, but I wanted to be on the writing and reporting side of sports. So that's actually when I came back from that internship. That's when I changed my major. That's when I started getting into the magazine. Now, fast forward a few years later, things have changed. I now have a new position with the lottery where I'm making more money. I'm in operations. I do work overnight, so I work 9 to 9.
I work weird hours
Um,
too.
and right. So I also have my own place now,
Good
and I
for
also
you.
have my car. So things did progress, but it was that moment where I was like, man, megabus. And if you ever rode a megabus or a Greyhound, it's brutal.
Yeah, it is.
It's
Especially if the
brutal.
air conditioning's not working. Yeah.
Right. Or the charger. The charger's not working for the phone. It's just brutal. It is. So, it was a lot of those times that, but I respected it though because it taught me discipline. It taught
Mm-hmm.
me that if I really wanted something that I have to go for it. Like I said, I got to dive in. I can't really be like one foot in, one foot out. It also taught me that, while my friends that I have some that are out partying and hanging out, um, I got to be disciplined enough to write these stories and talk to wonderful professionals like you and be able to be a sponge and learn and listen from your experiences because everything that you said to this point and each professional that I've talked to is
Yeah.
important. And I don't minimize it at all because I really do appreciate the time that you guys give. But it's it's inspiring to hear your stories because the grind, the
Well, I
grind.
think you did by you going to Nashville or Knoxville rather. I mean, you really were able to learn exactly what you wanted to do. And then just like when I was doing traffic or working in the news atmosphere, you learn so much about that and you apply it. You apply it then to the sports.
Yeah,
It's all value. It's all valuable. So that was great that you did that.
yeah, absolutely. Now it's led me to my third internship, which is covering high school games. So I'll be doing that every Friday night. And yeah, so it just taught me a lot. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that story with you and let you know that
Well,
yeah, I'm
keep,
almost.
but that sounds just like what I did. I mean, keep going. So when my first big job was so I was doing radio. So then I got a full-time job doing the traffic on radio. And it was a split shift. So I would work from 4 a.m. till about 10 a.m. And then I would go back from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. So it was all radio traffic, sometimes news, and then sometimes sports as well. I would do sports updates. So that was Monday to Friday. Saturdays and Sundays, and I did this for 2 solid years. Saturdays and Sundays, I was on television at our CBS affiliate in New York City as the morning sports anchor. So we had a weekend morning show. I was the morning sports anchor, you know, getting up at 1 a.m, getting to work at like 2:30. And it was early on the weekends. It was like 4 to 6, and then like 8 to 9. You know, it was like around the morning shows or whatever it was. It was wacky.
Right.
But I worked 7 days a week for 2 years straight.
Wow.
So
That is a
I was in my
grind.
late 20s, and I was your age. I was exactly your age. So I was like 27 to 29 is when I did that.
Okay. So, and that kind of segues into the question I have, like the sacrifices that you made, and like what is the toughest thing about that? Like, as far as, you know, social life. You know, you seem like a personable person, a wonderful woman to be around. So I would think that you have a great personality and people would love to be around you. But it's tough because sports are on weekends and sports are daily. And it's like, you know, how do you get a social life? How do you get time for family and friends? Holidays, man. How hard is that to deal with?
It's hard. It's hard, but you find ways. So now what I learned is, and then, like, you know, it comes back to you later in your career. So now my schedule is Sunday through Thursday, and I have Fridays and Saturdays off. So I make sure, you know, that like we try to do family events on Saturdays. You know, I miss all those things like the Sunday holidays, like Mother's Days, Father's Days, you know, whatever else falls on a Sunday. So we just do it on a Saturday. Like, you know, you just kind of come to accept sometimes. I mean, I missed so many Christmases working, filling in, you know, for the main sports anchor. I would fill in for them on a holiday. I spent tons of New Year's Eves on the road when I was traveling with the Knicks, Easters, you name it, you know. But you're at a sporting event. You're at a professional sporting event.
Right.
You know, like it's if you love it, it doesn't really faze you. I've done Christmas games. For the Knicks played a lot on Christmas.
Yes,
not so
did.
much now. Not so much now. But for a while, so I would do the game for MSG Network. At the time, it wasn't fully. They weren't all on ESPN or ABC or TNT. So at noon, you know, so on Christmas morning, I would go to the Garden, do the game from noon till 2:30, and then just get to Christmas festivities a little bit later. But I didn't mind. But you just have to accept. Some people don't want to do that. Like, they want Sunday brunch and they want to spend their Sundays. I work every Sunday. So you just get used to it. And that's the big sacrifice. You know, that's what it is.
And that's an amazing attitude to have, because that's likewise for me. I always say the real one, as far as the family and the friends, they're going to understand.
Yeah, and you can celebrate another day.
Right. You can celebrate on any other day. You know, birthdays you do miss, stuff like that. But once again, you can always come back and celebrate it when you do have the time to celebrate.
Right.
And that's a really positive attitude to have. It really is, because there are some professionals that I have talked to in this business that you can see it wears on their face. It's really tough for them to be away and stuff like that.
I mean, I don't have children, so that helps a little. Like, I know that's a big sacrifice for people that have children, you know, to not be there Christmas morning, to not pick them up at school because of your crazy hours. Or like for me, I get up at 3:30 in the morning. I leave my house 4:30. If I had children, you know, who's taking them to school? You know, my spouse, you know, so that helps me a little bit. I know but other people find ways. I still know children. I mean, you know, parents, colleagues that have children.
Absolutely.
We just find ways around that. But yes, it wears on some of them. You know, everybody got stuff. So my sacrifice there is, I'm married 16 years, but we never had children, because I just always felt, you know what? I mean, I want to do something 100%. So I'm either a parent 100%, or I'm a sportscaster working 100%. So that's just the way. I like
that. Well, congratulations on that too. 16 years. I hope to have a marriage like that. I really do. That's wonderful. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, what is your favorite memory or event you have done in the industry thus far, and why? And it doesn't have to be just one. It could be a couple.
Because there's like 3 unique ones, and they're so different, you're going to crack up. So my first big event that blew me away, I was doing radio, and I was working for Westwood One, and I did the 2004 Summer Olympic Games in Athens, Greece. And I was doing, and this is where we talked about playing sports earlier, and I struggled in softball and soccer and basketball because they have balls. Gymnastics. So what did I do till I was 14 as a gymnast? I did play-by-play for men's and women's gymnastics on radio for the 2004 Olympics in Greece. And Carly Patterson was up for, had one more routine to go. She had to get a certain score. This is where the math came in. I used my calculator. She had to have a certain score to win the all-around competition. They had not had an all-around golden for the USA since Mary Lou Retton, again, who I grew up watching. She was one of my favorite athletes. Okay. And Carly Patterson nailed her floor routine. She got the score she needed. I called it. I called a historical moment. Okay. I had like a couple things in my mind, like what would I say? I was prepared, had everything organized, and went really well. So that was my first really amazing experience to call an Olympic women's gymnastics all-around gold medal live. My second really cool experience was in 2006. It was December of 2006. Okay. And I was working in Boston for New England Sports Network, the Red Sox reporter, and they had just signed the Japanese phenom Daisuke Matsuzaka. Oh, so so the Red Sox ownership is in Japan, and they signed the deal, and they were getting on the private plane, and they were flying back to Boston for his press conference the next day. Well, it's like a 20-hour flight. So for about 15 of those 20 hours, I was live at Fenway Park on Yawkey Way, like in the middle of the night to the next day, tracking the plane, because we had the tracking because it was the ownership. I'm tracking a plane. It was so fun. People were out like they had just won the World Series. Like that's how many people were on Yawkey Way waiting for Daisuke Matsuzaka. And it was freezing. It was like December. It was cold. In Boston, it's real cold. That was cool. And it wasn't a game. It wasn't an event, but it was a sports story. And but my skylight is like the sun's moving, so it looks real weird. I'm like under a skylight right
You're glowing right now. I love it.
So that was wild.
Right.
And then my next favorite event, and I covered the Red Sox winning the World Series. I covered Clay Buchholz throwing a no-hitter. I covered Kurt Schilling going 9 2/3 of an inning of no-hit ball. In fact, it wasn't perfect, but it was no-hit. Right. And then he gave up a hit with 1 out to go. But my next favorite event was because, I kind of knew the Red Sox were going to win the World Series that night, so I was prepared. You rein in your emotions, and you're a journalist, but you don't know what other things are going to happen at games. Right. And I got to see Carmelo Anthony score 62 points at Madison Square Garden and break the Knicks record for a Knicks player in a single game at the Garden. And he broke his favorite player, Bernard King. So he was a little boy before he moved to Baltimore. He was a little boy in Brooklyn, and Bernard King was his favorite player. Shooter, that's what Melo turned out to be. And he broke Bernard's. Could you imagine your hero like breaking their record?
Right, that's crazy.
That's what Melo did, and I knew all that. And just to watch that game and to do that interview with Carmelo after the game was so cool. So those are my 3 favorites.
That's pretty cool. I love that. I remember the Melo game. I believe he played against the Bobcats when he did that. And,
yes, he did.
I definitely remember that. And then I do remember the 2000. I remember the uproar because I'm such a sports fanatic. I'm always a historian of the game. There was such an uproar with Daisuke Matsuzaka, being signed. And I was like, okay.
Wait, he had the gyro ball. He threw the gyro ball.
Right, the gyro ball, right? Yeah. And you kind of knew that the Red Sox, at the beginning of that year, I kind of knew, remembering my mind, that they were dominant in 2007.
Oh, yeah. After a crappy year in 2006, they were awesome in 2007.
They were awesome in 2007. Mm-hmm. They was.
Oh, my God. They crushed the Yankees all the time. It was great. It was fun.
No doubt. Now, I asked you about your favorite memory. Now I'm going to ask you, what is one event that you would like to cover, but you simply haven't yet? And why?
Oh, good. Okay. So I don't know if this will ever happen. I've never covered, I've covered a couple Super Bowls, but not as like a broadcaster on the broadcast. Like I would love to be on a Super Bowl broadcast.
Okay.
And, I would love to get back to the Olympics, believe it or not, from a television side. But it's tough because it's only on NBC, and now the whole system's thrown off because of the coronavirus.
Right.
with next year being the 2020 games in 2021.
Yep.
Yeah, but I would like to get back to the Olympics as a broadcaster.
I like that.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, yeah,
I
those are the
know.
two.
I like that. No, it's for me it would be a Super Bowl because of my
Yeah.
dad. We watched a lot of Super Bowls together as I was younger. And now he lives in upstate New York, which I will be there in December. Um, so yeah, it would be great to get to because I told him that Dad, as a sports journalist reporter, I'm going to cover the Super Bowl one day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I told him
Mm-hmm.
that, he kind of looked at me crazy. He looked at me like, really? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna cover the Super Bowl one day, and I'm gonna have you right there next to me. He
That's
said that
awesome.
would be a super awesome experience. And he gave me a kind of look that like I said, he never looked at me like that because he knew I was serious. I was
Yep.
very serious about that.
You're
So
on your way. You're on your way, Chris, for sure.
I hope so, Tina. Thank you so much. But the Olympics is number one overall
It's
part
cool.
of it. I love to travel,
Yeah.
and I would just love to see my favorite sport. My low key favorite sport is water polo. So if I can see
Oh,
that,
very cool.
yeah,
They're
that would,
amazing.
yeah,
Holy, to see that in person, to think that they're treading water that whole time and
yeah,
their arms are above the water.
yeah,
It's insane. The swimmers are just insane athletes. It's
insane.
amazing.
I
Any
love it.
swimmer, any water sport like that is amazing.
Right, and I love water. I was born in the Midwest in Chicago, but I was raised in San Diego. So the beach is just something I love. I love the beach.
Yeah.
So that's just me. So as a reporter, you uh, chronicled chronicled it as far as being
Yeah.
on the move. So my question is it best for you to get a job and stay in one area, or is it best to extend your career and continue moving?
I think a lot of that's out of our control these days because we know right now that this whole industry is going through a shift because right
Yeah,
now they're doing games from remote locations and there's limited media. So let's forget about all that for this year. Let's just pretend 2020 is its own year.
right, right,
So what I see, you can't, you just want to continue improving. So when you have a job and you have a good solid job, do your job, focus on your job, be the best you could be. But of course, then you want to move up. You know what I mean? You want to move on to, so you don't want to just get it. Okay, I'm good for the next 20 years. Well, because you want to get to your Super Bowl. You want to broadcast, be on a broadcast. So you have to find that path there. There's so many opportunities these days too. So what opportunity best fits your goals? Could it be working on the internet? With a digital site. Maybe that digital site has better production quality than working at a small TV station or a radio station, and you want to produce and do more long format. I think it all depends on, where the job openings are, but you do want to try to get jobs that will advance you to whatever your goals are. If you want to do play-by-play, that's the way you're going to go. You make various sacrifices. You do high school and then you move into college, small colleges, bigger, larger Division I colleges, minor leagues. You have to kind of create a path that would get you to a certain level. Look, some people luck out and they get NBA jobs right out of college. It's rare,
right,
but it has happened recently, for a couple people. But,
right.
Everybody's kind of has their, you hear, create your own path. I mean, it's true in this industry too. And then who's going to hire you? I never had be a radio traffic reporter on my list of goals. Never had it, but it
Right,
was a job at the time. It was in broadcasting. It got me out of hotel sales and
right.
it got me on the radio. So that was a step in the right direction, so, and then you use your contacts and stuff. So that's a really, you can't pinpoint that. There's no blueprint, there's no specific roadmap to follow. Some people live all over the country. So you already have. And they
Yeah,
always told me in college that you would move here and work in this small market. And I always
yep.
wanted to live in Arizona. Don't ask me why. I always wanted to live in the desert or work in Miami. Never got jobs there. I tried. Believe me, I tried when there were openings. I always stayed in the New York area. Always stayed in the New York area. Whether it was working at a cable station in Staten Island, working at a weird warehouse in New Jersey doing production for Major League Baseball. I did that in between stuff. And then I was on air in New York. You just never know what your path could be.
That I'm
And you're
glad you
young,
did it.
so.
I'm glad. Jersey is you. Jersey and New York, that is you. You know, and you fit it well. And I'm sure that, you know, other places, like you said, was on your mind, but I can't imagine you being nowhere else. You just do such a terrific job where you at. And I know the people love you, love seeing you, so it's just pretty cool. To
Thank
touch up
you.
on something that you said about the small markets, yeah, teachers, you know, a lot of teachers do say, because right now I got seven classes right now. So
7. Mm-hmm.
so right now, the teachers are coming in and saying, you know, don't get your hopes up. You know, you might have to start off with low pay, and you might have to work in a small market, and
They said the same thing to me 25 years ago.
right. So it's like, okay, excuse me, ma'am, sir. I know what you're saying because you're basing that off with experience and maybe
Mm-hmm.
statistics, but I don't want to aspire to be working in a small market if I can work in a big market. Like
Mm-hmm.
my dreams and goals, they don't expire to just be like, let's just settle just to settle to settle. Like
Right.
I'm a person that is assertive naturally, so I'm not gonna just say, well, you know, I'm just gonna work in a small market because they said so. I'm like, the hell with that.
Apply to both. You know what I
Right,
mean? And if you get the job in the small market, that's where you work. You get your
right,
feet wet, you make your
right,
mistakes there, and then
right.
you work your way up. And if you get lucky enough to get a bigger market job, then you're lucky enough. You know,
And
that's what
that's
I did. I applied everywhere.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it also segues to a great question. Now, we talked about interns and pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But I wanted to ask you, now being a professional in the you know in the game for so long, what are the pros and cons in being in a professional sense? You know, is it sometimes work assignments? Is it long hours? I know
Yeah.
we talked about sacrifices before with family, friends, holidays, and different things like that. But you know, sometimes it may be a work assignment where you got to go cover and it's really cold. Sometimes it may be a work assignment where you know you got to go into an area that you're not very familiar with. There's been professionals that told me that sometimes they have to MMJ or they have to and go into an area that's very dangerous. Uh,
Yes.
so what would you say is the pros and cons about
I mean, that it's everything you just said, you know, so you're so aware of it. You know, I think you're already well educated and have knowledge and what to expect, like the not glamorous stuff, like
that? Yeah,
like I wake up. So here's a good example. Last night, the Islanders were getting murdered on the ice.
it was.
But I don't know. I watched the whole stupid game right until the end. I mean, they were down 6 goals, but I had that game on. I had the Yankees on our smaller TV.
Right,
You know, the Yankees were getting massacred. Adam Ottavino gives up a grand slam, and I totally called it.
right.
And I had to get up in 4 hours. And my husband's like, go to bed. He's like, you know, the Islanders, they're gonna lose. I'm like, oh no. Like, what if somebody got hurt? And
Right.
you know, because I love the sport. So I slept like 3.5 hours last night. So just like little things like that. So that's like I have weird hours. So I have to be up early for the morning show.
Yeah.
So you know, sports happen at night. You know, that's the thing there.
Right.
You know, and like you said, like in crazy spaces, or crazy places, a couple of times, I had to I do college football for CBS Sports Network, and you know, you fly out. Some colleges are hard to get to, you know. So you fly out, it's like you 2 legs, then you have to drive an hour and a half. And then like sometimes I'm in like, you know, farm country USA and I'm a city girl and I'm driving through the cattle and I'm like, where am I? There's no lights on the highway. You
Right.
know, it's like these 2-lane roads. So it's
Right.
just like a little crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, just to get to my little hotel or, you know, which is close to the college. I forget where we were at, university, so it was Ohio and Athens. So the University of Ohio and Athens, that was a doozy of a drive.
I
And
bet.
then where else was a crazy drive? Wasn't Buffalo. I'm trying to think of that was a crazy one too, but I'm trying to think
Yeah.
where else. There was another wacky one. It was like 5 years ago now. I forget what school. I don't know. But it was just like driving in like the middle of Indiana. I don't know where I am. But, you know, little things like that. So, I mean, I guess those are cons, but it just comes with the territory. It really, yeah, and you know, and then sometimes stuff is out of your control and I still get mad, but like, you know, a technician might press the wrong button, the wrong video airs,
Right.
or
Right.
something gets edited wrong, it wasn't
Right.
what you requested. You know, that drives me, but that's out of your control and you
Right.
just try to work and make sure it doesn't happen again. And
Okay.
you know, you make sure the person realizes what they did wrong without like going crazy. You know, why wasn't this done? Yeah, the wrong video aired on me a couple times last week. I was like,
I know,
what
right?
I'm talking about. I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. That's that, but I'm talking about this right now. I just
Right.
tell you.
The
So,
head scratcher.
little
Yeah.
things like, but that's going to happen wherever you are.
Right.
We had major technical problems on our CBS sports broadcast at the Army game this past weekend because our crew was in New Jersey in a warehouse so they could socially distance. We had a truck, but there were only two people in the truck. There was the emergency producer and then the technician, the engineer that was plugging everything in.
Right.
Everything was being done 70 miles away from us. So there was some stuff, like I didn't have a talk back button, so I couldn't talk to my producer. So I was texting my producer the whole time. I could hear him. So I was like listening to the game. So I listened to the Army Middle Tennessee game, but I spent a lot of it looking at my phone, texting my producer, like following up on injuries and stuff.
Yeah.
So I missed something. There was no spotter, there was no statistician because you have to be alone in your booth. So our play-by-play guy missed something, and he was away from the analyst in another booth. So we like all missed something.
Yeah.
And so now we won't miss it again because now we learned.
Right. And prepare. Yep.
But like it was because we were so dependent on statisticians, so dependent on me, looking at we're like a normal game that wouldn't have happened.
Right.
So now we have to adjust to this COVID era,
Right. Right.
We got burned, but it won't, we can't freak out. We can't blame anybody. We can't blame, there's a pandemic. We can't blame, no, it was the disease's fault, but you know what I mean? So we're learned so that mistake doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool. That's really what's cool about that was that just start from the beginning what you said, because I do that too. Because I blog, I have a blog out. I wanted to do something different from the school and from the newspaper that I'm going to be writing for. So I blog on my favorite teams, and there's times where I have my two laptops up. I'm watching the Lakers game. I'm watching the Padres. I'm watching all different kind of teams. And they come on late. So I'm trying to stay up for the game, but then there's times where it's like, okay, this game looks decided, but you don't want to miss that moment. What if a moment happens?
Yeah, that's how I am. Yep.
Right. So it's one of those things where, and I had to say, if you're going on 3.5 hours of work, my goodness, that's nice. That's nice. Very beautiful. I would definitely say that. But it's also, like I said, it segues to my next question, which is, I have a love-hate relationship with Teamwork Online. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that website. Or Work in Sports. On online period, as far as we're talking about job applications. Because sometimes I feel like when I upload my resume, my cover letter, I'm sending it into space. And it's not really getting reviewed, or it's not getting really looked at. And, and then I also feel like some of these companies put postings up for legal purposes. Meaning that they may have their person that they want to hire, but they put it up for legal purposes. So my question is to you, what is the best way to get an interview with companies? Is it doing an online thing, which I don't think it is, in my opinion, or is it emailing producers, directors at certain stations, sending out your resume and stuff like that, or is it talking with wonderful, talented professionals like yourself, building a
Yeah, it's almost how you have to find a story. So here's where the journalist comes in. You got to work your contacts. So, and just like how you found me through Instagram and social media, like you have to find ways to connect with people because it's true. I mean, once you press send, there's no guarantee that resume is going to get read or you're going to get an interview. And maybe, they're interviewing other people. You're not the right fit for the job. But if you could talk to a producer, director, or whoever is sort of involved in that job, they could tell you why. Maybe your resume didn't qualify you for an interview. So that, again, it's a learning process, but I would just try to contact the human. You find your way to one of the humans that can even then, connect you to somebody else. That is the best way, because then you're right. Maybe they'll be like, oh, wait, this person was look how they sought me out. That's kind of cool. Or they just like the way you sounded on the phone. Like, oh, I really like talking to that person. Maybe we'll interview them anyway. So yeah, get to the human, whatever you have to do. I mean, and there's more ways than ever. LinkedIn, there's all kinds of connecting things, Facebook, all the social media. Try to find out, be the investigative journalist that you're, going to be, even in sports, and then find who to talk to. If it's a job you really want, so that electronic resume doesn't sit in space.
Right, absolutely. That's why I kind of, because I'm here based in Atlanta, and I did seek out locals. But I
Yeah.
also don't want to just put all my eggs in the basket in just
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I definitely don't want to do that. So that's why I reached out to different professionals. Obviously, you're in a big market in New York. I love New York. I have family in upstate New York. So that's a market I can definitely see myself working in, whether it's, low
Sure.
station and
And
stuff
there's
like
so many different jobs here too. It's not just like the 5 television stations. There's all kinds of digital networks, and Google's based here. You know what I mean?
that.
Twitter's
Right.
got a whole sports department.
Right.
So there's so much. Yeah, there's so much going on. Bleacher Report's here too, even though they're owned by Turner. But I know they had major cuts recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of digital space. Yeah,
So
space too.
I love the city. I love the city. I love the sports. I've been there twice. My ultimate bucket list goal is to cover a Knicks game. That's my bucket list goal because
Yeah.
I love Madison Square Garden. It's the Mecca. That's what they call it,
And it's an atmosphere. Even when the Knicks stink, it is still such a great atmosphere.
right?
You know,
So
it really is. It really is. Yeah.
absolutely. I want to
Um,
do
and you mentioned the Knicks. There's also 12 professional.
I'm sorry. What did you say? 12 professions?
Oops, you froze on me, Chris.
Oh,
Oh,
am I here?
I was going to say there's also 12 professional sports teams in New York, and every team has their own digital video
Yeah.
group, and they're producing so much content. I'm getting all it. So because for example, the Islanders are in Edmonton, Canada, so they're 2 time zones over. We can't go to these games, and they have an NHL site, but because I'm not up, till 12:30 in the morning because I have to get up 3 hours later, I actually get my sound. It's all digital. We get it from the Islanders website. It's from the NHL. So there's places to work now for teams with their digital content. And it's as good as quality as television.
Okay, I like that.
Any
I
TV.
like that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what is the best advice anyone has ever given you, or the best advice that you can give to anyone that's a future sports media industry person?
Don't give up. It seems so silly and simple and almost cliche. But if this, like you said, and you said it right out of the gate, if you have I went back to my passion after I was doing sales, so don't give up. Find different ways for somebody to say yes to, and you might have to take a couple detours. Again, doing traffic on the radio, but don't give up. Keep your mind and on what you want to do on that goal. And even if you have to make the detours or make crazy sacrifices and have like a non-journalism, non-sports job to make the money for a little bit,
Yeah.
and do stuff on the side,
Yeah.
you might have to do that, but don't give up.
I like that. I do. I mean, I work for, as you know, I told you, I work for the lottery now. Been doing that for 4 years.
Yeah.
I do event security. I do full-time school. So
To get
I'm
your
a home,
cash, you got
right,
to feed
right,
yourself and have a place to live. Yep.
right. So obviously bills got to get paid. So I'm doing what I have to do there. I'm gonna ask you this last question. Then I'm gonna tell you some stuff. So as you know, this is my first football game coming up where I'm going to be writing about it, covering it, asking questions to coach. I'm a little nervous. I am.
Oh no.
I am. I love sports, but I am a little nervous. How do you remember covering your first game, and how like your very first game that you had to cover, and what was the feelings that you had in your mind, and how did you either snap out of it and say, hey, I got to do this, or was it just nerves all through the game? Because right now I'm excited, but I'm definitely a little nervous as well.
No, there's definitely nerves. I remember, I'm pretty sure it was a high school soccer game.
Okay.
It was my first game that I covered. And it was for cable TV.
Okay.
And it was just a feature package, on the game. It was airing like the night. It was a weekly sports show. Again, it was called Varsity Sports Zone, one of my many jobs. And I was nervous, but just go in prepared, know what the matchup is like. I mean, you love sports. Like, and put yourself back in your shoes as a fan. What do parents of these kids, like what do they want to know? What will they want to know after the game that they don't know from sitting in the stands, or that we don't know watching the Yankees play the Blue Jays? What do we not know that you as the journalist could find out? Like, why was somebody struggling? So football, for example, like why did the quarterback struggle? What would led up to this? You ask the questions, what went on in practice? You ask the questions about the defense, the schemes that they faced, you know, what were the mistakes, like, you know, different things. Was it a new center? Like you'll find different pieces to put together on why that game resulted that way, whatever the final score was. And then you tell a story about it. You know, you tell that story. So just keep, you know, what would you want to know as a fan?
Okay.
And then you put that story together and and you get the quotes from the coaches, the players, whoever you get a chance to talk to. And you just put it together like a story like that. And you've done this. This is what you've been learning how to do, studying what to do.
I know, right? Because I've done it in college, and I'm cool, and I've wrote teacher stories and interviews, and I've interviewed athletes,
Yeah.
but you know, it's the first actual time where it's like out there, and it's gonna be locally, and it's a whole lot more eyes that's gonna be on it, and people are gonna be looking and reading about my story that I'm covering for their kids in their high school. So, you know, like I said, I'm nervous and excited, 50-50 percentage wise. So it's pretty.
And the good news is they're good, high school level. They're going to be excited that you're doing a story on them, win or lose. So you know, you show them that they're cool. You show them respect, and they're going to be, you know what I mean? Like, because they're still kids, but but it'll be easier than dealing with an NFL player in your first job.
That is for sure. Yes.
Much easier.
I wanted to let you know
and I do have something coming up, so I do have to get off in a few minutes. So.
Okay, cool. So this is perfect. So I told you about my blog. So what I do, I blog about different teams that I like, but I also post videos like this for people that want to be sports, want to be in sports, understand people's stories, understand people's grind. And it's not just a glamorous life. If you want to really be involved, these are some of the things that you may have to go through. Your own story is going to get carved out. Would you mind if I post this on my blog?
Oh, sure. No problem at all. Okay. Of course. Yes.
Now, the second thing is I'm following you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I would love if you followed me back, but you don't have to. But I would love to.
I don't do LinkedIn. I don't keep up with LinkedIn, but all the others, I got you.
Gotcha.
I just don't go on. I should, but I don't go on enough. But yeah, okay. Oh no, I got you. And I do everything. Instagram, Twitter is my two favorites.
Okay, cool. And that's awesome. And the third thing is, last thing, I want to be able to send you some articles and some reels. I would love to have some of your feedback because, like I said,
absolutely,
what you say is very important. So I would love to do that.
And you have my email, so absolutely.
Okay. Other than that, I have no more questions, Tina. You have been absolutely wonderful. It's been a pleasure seeing you, and I look forward to speaking to you in the near future.
Well, Chris, you asked great questions, and you have so much knowledge in all of this already. I love the way that you're collecting this information, so you have a super bright future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care and enjoy your Tuesday, okay?
Great, you too. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.